Yes, I am back from Ghana. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered for Monday, December 30th, 2019. Sad news out of Atlanta. Congressman John Lewis announces he has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Certainly, folks, it is a dire warning from his doctors, and we'll talk all about that. Again, I spent 10 days in Ghana, folks, all around the country. This is the year of return. I will show you my exclusive interview with the president of Ghana. He's only given one interview to an American journalist, yours truly. Also, I got a few words to say to the African Americans who are stuck on stupid in this country. One, who have no understanding of what's happening in the continent of Africa. But two, especially all these assholes who are saying the year of return is a sham. Oh, yes, I call them assholes for a reason. I will deconstruct their ignorance on today's show. Donald Trump, remember he said to black people, thank you for not voting? Guess what? He is driving black folks to the poll in 2020, not to re-elect him. I'll tell you about a new poll out showing that. And also, white conservative evangelicals just love themselves some Donald Trump, but I guess they forgot those morals, values, principles, all the stuff along those lines. We got a packed show. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the piss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Many folks were shocked and saddened when Congressman John Lewis of Georgia announced that he has pancreatic cancer. This was a tweet that he sent out. Quote, I've been in some kind of fight for freedom, equality, basic human rights for nearly my entire life. I've never faced a fight quite like the one I have now. This month, in a routine medical visit and subsequent test, doctors discovered stage 4 pancreatic cancer. This diagnosis has been reconfirmed. While I am clear-eyed about the prognosis, doctors have told me that recent medical advances have made this type of cancer treatable in many cases, that treatment options are no longer as debilitating as they once were, and that I have a fighting chance. So I have decided to do what I know to do and do what I've always done. I'm going to fight it and keep fighting for the beloved community. We still have many bridges to cross. To my constituents, being a representative in Congress is an honor of a lifetime. I will return to Washington in coming days to continue our work and begin my treatment plan, which will occur over the next several weeks. I may miss a few votes during this period, but with God's grace, I will be back on the front line soon. Please keep me in your prayers as I begin this journey. Well, messages of support have flooded in from friends and colleagues, and he's certainly in our prayers. But folks, also, this is the second Congressional Black Caucus member who has announced pancreatic cancer. Congressman Alcee Hastings of Florida several months ago also talked about his fight with pancreatic cancer. Joining us right now is Lauren Victoria Burke with the NNPA, Derek Holly, president of Reaching America, and political analyst Reese Colbert, creator of Black Women's Views. Folks, first off, glad to have all of you here. Glad to see you. This was, certainly shocking news for a lot of folks. Lauren, out of anyone in Congress, I mean, certainly when it comes to who's a true American hero and patriot.
Right.
Even Republicans often talk about, the one Democrat who they most respect and admire is Congressman John Lewis.
Right.
Because of his involvement in his role in the civil rights movement, the last living speaker who spoke that day at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28th, 1963. But he is facing something that's difficult where less than 5% of people live more than 5 years. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has had pancreatic cancer. The reason that she has still lived this long is because of previous cancer, her tests were a lot more detailed, and they found the tumor frankly, before most people would even discover it, because once pancreatic cancer, once tumor is discovered, pretty much you're at end stage. So this is shocking news to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's really shocking. He actually is a historic figure, still living, walking around, someone that you can talk to very easily. He's extremely approachable, extremely friendly. And John Lewis, just like sort of a rock star, cannot walk around the Capitol without everybody, you know, stopping him. And it's funny to watch it cross demographics and cross all ages. Everybody knows who he is. And you see, like, on social media, it was really cute to see after this. A lot of people posted their photos of John Lewis. Yeah. I got to find my photo of John Lewis. Everybody's got a photo of John Lewis because he is not the type of guy, even if he's a little late for a vote or something like that, to not stop and talk to people. So it's like really sad. And really on the heels of Elijah Cummings and John Conyers passing away this year, it's really difficult to think about another, like, legend in the Black Caucus leaving, because you're losing a lot of that history. As somebody who, you know, has had a blog about the Black Caucus, it really is interesting talking to the older members. I always like talking to the older members because they, of course, experienced segregation in this country, and of course, in John Lewis's case, of course, is a civil rights hero, a incredible civil rights hero. But there's other members too in the caucus. You mentioned Alcee Hastings was one of them. All the members who grew up in the South are always some of the most interesting discussions in the caucus. But of course, John Lewis is always number one because he is just the voice, a voice of an amazing voice to have around at a time when Donald Trump's around. And it's going to be really hard to even contemplate him not being there. I mean, you see on the floor of the House, they always turn to him at the moment when they need the ethical, moral voice of the country. And like you said, Republicans like John Lewis. He's just somebody who sort of transcends politics.
Derek?
I would agree. He is a piece of history. And I found it very interesting that Mark Meadows, Republican congressman out of North Carolina, posted a picture of the same thing, and he had nothing but kind words. And it seems like that's what all of the rest of the members of Congress, like I said, on both sides of the aisle, have nothing but positive things to say about the congressman. And it's just unfortunate because my father-in-law passed away of pancreatic cancer, and it's such an aggressive cancer.
Yes.
And so I just hope he can fight it, and he'll be around a lot longer.
Keep in mind, you know, of course, Steve Jobs had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, chose not to actually have the surgery. There's a thing called a Whipple surgery. Therefore, when it's that advanced, many doctors say the surgery, frankly, isn't worth it. You talk about how aggressive it is. One of my alpha brothers, an amazing brother, Ronaldo Glover, was a lawyer in Chicago. I remember having lunch with him in May or so, and then I get a call from him in July that he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He called me on the phone. We had talked, and I had sent different messages. Week after Thanksgiving, he was gone.
Right.
Wow.
And it moved that fast, and so recently that's what we're dealing with. But again, you know, here we are in December. Congressman Alcee Hastings, he announced in July
Right.
he had pancreatic cancer, and is still with us. And so it really depends upon when it was caught and certainly the type of treatment.
And the important thing is he says he's still going to be working in Congress. So he's still here, and I think that perhaps I can see it going the Senator John McCain route where it's that much more cherished, understanding that he's still here, he's fighting this aggressive cancer, but he is a fighter. And I just think we can't take it for granted that these legends are still around and to really cherish what they're bringing to the table. So he's still at work. To me, that sounds encouraging. I don't know if it's being optimistic or encouraging, but I think it's important that we recognize that he's still here while he is still here.
This is also one of the reasons why, really with beginning in 2017, it was moving towards MLK 50. That I started doing a lot of these interviews with a lot of our civil rights heroes. Because, you know, your mainstream networks, they've done numerous interviews and documentaries on John Lewis. But if you think about so many of the people who they pretty much ignored. Dorothy Cottons of the world, MLK's attorney Clarence Jones, you think about Bob Moses, you think about Annie Lee Cooper, I can go on and on and on. And so one of the reasons why, you know, we did a lot of those interviews was to be able to sit down with them, talk to them, and get those thoughts and perspectives recorded so we have them for future generations.
Yep.
And in February, SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they're going to have their 60th anniversary. John Lewis was one of the leaders of SNCC, and is certainly planning to play a major role in that gathering when they meet. I ran the Charles Cobb when he was at the NABJ convention. I said, you know, we're going to have our cameras there because I want to be able to capture as many of those voices, because what we have to understand is, you know, John Lewis was the youngest, one of the youngest during that period. Now he's in his 70s. You look at Ambassador Andrew Young, 85. Reverend Jackson, pushing 80. C.T. Vivian and Joseph Lowry, 95, 94. And so, so looking at Lewis, so your youngest civil rights folks are in their 70s, almost pushing 80.
I was just going to say, Roland, it's good to capture this stuff right now, because the younger generation, if it's not captured, they'll have no idea what took place in history. And so many of them are lost even right now. So anytime you have an opportunity to capture something like that and be able to show it to this younger audience, I think it'll go a long way.
Well, I'll tell you, we did an interview with Reverend James Lawson. This was in October 2017. An amazing interview. He didn't want to do it because he's not a person who likes being out front. So, y'all, this actually happened. And this probably was the most upset I ever was in my 13 years of TV One. The idiots in editing did not ingest the interview.
Oh, man. When you say ingest the interview, what exactly do you mean? You mean they did not record? They didn't hit the record button?
No, we recorded it.
Right.
But they
brought it back on a hard drive.
Right. Oh,
did not copy it.
Wow.
And so when we were getting ready for MLK 50, I was like, yo, we need to edit the James Lawson interview. We can't find it.
Wow.
What do you mean we can't find it?
Right.
When I say I went off, I went to hell off on them. He was 88 when we did the interview.
Right.
Okay, look, and here's a piece. Black folks who are 70 and older, I don't wait to interview.
Right.
And the reason why, when I was the news editor at Savoy magazine, the artist Biggers, he was like 77. Legendary artist. He's from Houston. So they wanted me to do a piece on him. Great. I said, no problem. They delayed. They said, no, we're going to run the interview. We're going to run the interview later in the next year. So delayed the interview. I talked to his wife, all set, then delayed it. Never got a chance to interview him because he died.
Wow.
I said, from that point, I said, I am not delaying interviewing anybody.
Right.
Especially if you black over 70.
Right.
Just straight up. Just straight up.
Right.
And
you know what's funny is that even when you interview people who are not on John Lewis's level, and this is what's so scary about it, you can interview these people who like not to be in the front. They got these amazing stories.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Right. Well, what happened with Lawson was,
it
was 2 years later. He's 90. I'm shooting these interviews with Be Woke Vote in Los Angeles. And I was talking to somebody else about the interview and how amazing it was and how TV One totally screwed it up. And then I was like, what the hell? I'm just going to call him. And remember, he didn't want to do the interview. So I had to talk him into a second one. He came, killed it. When we finished, the whole studio was just quiet. Just shocked. Y'all can go to YouTube. You got to see that interview. We did hit record. We recorded it, and we saved it this time. And in fact, it was so funny because the director, every 5 minutes, he was like, we're recording, right? We're recording, right? Because when I told him that story, he was like, it will not happen again. So, you know, certainly these voices matter, and I think listening to them talk about what they went through and how we got to where we are, it's important for all of us. And so we'll certainly have thoughts and prayers with Congressman John Lewis, and we'll be, of course, covering his journey as he battles pancreatic cancer. All right, folks, as I said, I just returned from a 10-day trip to Ghana. This is, of course, the year of return. There are thousands of African Americans who are there. In fact, y'all gonna trip out. First of all, more than 750,000 visas have been given out this year from the U.S. alone. And while I was there, I ran into black folks from Canada, from the U.K. It's been amazing the folks run into. It was so crazy this month that the Ghanaian government announced they would do visas on arrival. See, normally what happens is you got to go to the embassy, you got to get a visa, you got to get approved. No, people were literally getting on planes, flying to Ghana. In fact, the Delta flight, as I was flying back, the flight attendant out of Jamaica. I talked to her, Trisha Stewart. She told me that day after Christmas, on the flight, there was only one Ghanaian on the flight. The entire flight were African Americans. And she said that one of the passengers, a sister, said, "Can I please say something over the microphone?" So she let her. So if any of y'all were on that flight, and I know somebody recorded it, because she talked about all the melanin on the flight, I need to see the video. But she said that the people were clapping, they were cheering. She said it was one Ghanaian on the flight, the whole flight African Americans. Folks are there. Essence has their Full Circle Festival taking place right now. Celebrities are there. All kind of folks are there for the year of return. So while I was there, of course, we wanted to talk to various officials, and so we did so. And one of the folks I want to be sure you heard from, President of Ghana. Now, he is not necessarily given, first of all, he came to the United States. His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, he came to the United States in September 2018, announcing the year of return. But he hasn't given many interviews. This is the only interview that he's given to the American journalists on his major initiative. Here is my exclusive interview with the President of Ghana. President Addo, I surely appreciate you sitting down with me. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
You came to the United States in 2018 to announce a year of return. Are you even shocked with the response this initiative has gotten, not just from African Americans, but folks in the UK, folks in Canada, and from other countries?
I don't know whether shock is the word, but certainly, let me say, it's more than I expected. I had hoped that it would have a big resonance, but it has, I think, had a much bigger resonance than I had anticipated. It's a very welcome one. If you want us to use the word shock, all right, but it's a very welcome shock, and I'm very happy that the initiative has evoked the response that it has.
Obviously, there's an economic piece to it in terms of for the tourism industry here in Ghana, but also for so many people, it has been deeply personal. Individuals, they've shed tears, the historical impact as well. What did you want people? What did you want, and what do you want them to get out of this experience of returning to Ghana, many of them for the first time?
I think really something quite simple, a recognition that really we are all the same. We are from one family. We are now divided by the ocean, the Atlantic, and of course by the history, very tragic history, but that essentially we are still one family. And I'm hoping that this whole year of return thing would allow people to see that, and therefore give us an opportunity to really solidify the relations between us on both sides of the Atlantic and see ourselves as part and parcel of one African family. I think it's important for us. It's important for our sense of self-worth. It's important for our sense of identity. And certainly it is important for any effort that we're making to empower ourselves in the world.
The first president of this country, President Nkrumah, educated at a historically black college in the United States. There's always been this relationship between many African leaders and HBCUs and America as well. What do you hope comes out of this in terms of a better or different relationship with African Americans, especially when it comes to commerce, when it comes to investment, when it comes to partnership?
I think once the acknowledgement, the recognition, the awareness that we're part and parcel of the same family, on that you can build everything else. You can build cultural exchanges, commercial exchanges, investment cooperation. The whole edifice can be founded once that fundamental base is recognized. We are part and parcel of the same family. Then on it, you can build all the relations that suggest themselves. And that, of course, is building the economic relations. At the end of the day, people are identified by the level of prosperity, the level of development that they've attained. And I think that together, if we forge this relationship, we can assist ourselves and reinforce ourselves to be able to lift ourselves up. And I think it has the possibility of taking us to a new space, and therefore a new recognition by the world of who we are as a race, as a people.
This morning at the breakfast, you talked about moving forward. And what was really interesting to me when you talked about the impact of the Chinese diaspora on China and its development. And as I was listening to that, what you were essentially saying is that, look, when you look at the African diaspora, there is an opportunity here to really take this country, take this continent to a whole new level with the folks who are part of the diaspora.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those who went to America and the Caribbean are part of the most developed economy in the world today, especially the American economy. And my understanding would be that if this connection, if this awareness is there, there's a lot that can come from that end for this process of our mutual development. And for me, this is one of the main outcomes I'm looking at, how we can join the bridge across the Atlantic, how we can forge it in such a way that trade and investment and commerce come both sides of the Atlantic together.
How do you also see changing or working to change people's view, what's really between their ears? So, for instance, for African Americans, our view of Africa has been informed by white supremacy. African nations, colonization. I spoke at a church on Christmas Day here, and I said that really what is required is a massive reprogramming as to how we see ourselves versus what we've been taught about ourselves.
And this is why it is so important to have this personal, physical contact, for people to come here and see where we are. And in the process, of course, a lot of our own people will be going across as well and see how the conditions under which Black people live in America. But you cannot ever, ever escape the significance of that personal contact. The coming of lots of people from the Caribbean and from the Americas here was tell them that much of what they have been fed, much of the views of Africa that they have been fed do not correspond to anything, the reality. That we are not, in fact, just swinging on trees here. That there's a lot of development that is taking place here.
And also, unlike what was said by Donald Trump, these are not shithole countries.
I says, absolutely not. I said so at the time to him, that I thought that was an unfortunate statement for an American leader to make. We're not, Ghana certainly is not a shithole country. And as I say, the coming over is a way of opening up the consciousness, the awareness. And that is what you're talking about when you say what is between here. Mm-hmm. It is a question of the awareness, the expansion, the consciousness, and seeing that really people here, like you over there, we're all part and parcel of the same human race. We're part and parcel of the human family. And in our particular case, we have the added proximity of all being Black people. And myself, I think that if we're able to forge this relationship, the beginnings is what we're seeing now. You spoke about Kwame Nkrumah in the early days. I think that we have advantages here which were not present in his time. Mm-hmm. Communication, especially, and all the new technology that connects people. All of that, if we bring all of that into play, we have the opportunity really to build a really new relationship that can be very strong, which we can benefit from, you on that side, us on this side as well.
Well, communication is important. When I met the Asante King, there were several individuals who work at the palace who saw me and they say, I see you on YouTube, Facebook.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure you meet the king. And so it has been interesting traveling the country. I've been to several different cities. We've been shooting lots of interviews, and individuals who not necessarily who saw me when I was on CNN, and I haven't been there in 6 years, but who are seeing me on the internet. That's how we're, and are seeing the conversations, the stories that we're doing. And certainly when we take this back, being able to show that, to give people a different view that's unfiltered, which is also the name of my show, because it's not a matter of doing it through somebody else's lens, really through this perspective.
Yes, and that is, I think, also the other very important aspect of the year of return, that we have a way so that we can tell our stories to each other ourselves without the filter of third parties. So that what you see here in Ghana are your own impressions. They're not the impressions that have been imposed on you or forced on you or which have influenced you, but your own direct, personal, sensory perceptions of what is going on. And I think it's very, very important when you're trying to build a relationship of sincerity and integrity, that it should be informed mostly by the personal responses, reactions that you get from being amongst people, from interacting with people. And I'm hoping that this year of return, and then we find a way which we can build on it to maintain this interchange, this intercourse, as a permanent feature of our lives.
Got to get your thoughts on several Western African nations saying they're not going to use the CFA. And it's interesting, I had the former ambassador to the African Union on my show several times, and she's really been talking about Africans being independent and really forging his own path in his economy. You made comments when you were when the French president, where you made it clear, stop looking at Africa in terms of development aid, well, in terms of charity, look at this in terms of investment. And so I think those two, what you said then and then that action they just took, really speaks to saying, no, we are seeing ourselves and protecting ourselves in a much different way, especially with this.
And we have to. It just doesn't make sense that the richest continent in the world should be inhabited by the poorest people on the globe. It doesn't make any sense. And it is largely because of the relationships that have been forged both in colonial and post-colonial times that ties us down and makes the exploitation of our resources benefit people outside the continent and not ourselves. I find the decision that the French, the so-called Francophone African states have taken in Uema now to want to chart an independent path for their currency, an extremely positive and significant step in the efforts we're making to integrate the continent, create the single market, create a single currency. I think they've shown a lot of courage in turning their back on 50 years of post-colonial history and now decided to chart their own way independently of France. I think it's an extremely important, very, very significant step that they're taking, and a very welcome one. Everything that we require to bring prosperity to our people is here, except the systems that we have unfortunately allowed to dominate our lives. The time has come for us to free ourselves of those systems, use our resources for ourselves, look a little bit more inward than we have been doing recently, and seeing that the opportunities for development are right there in front of us. Mm-hmm. What we need is a mental and intellectual organization to make sure that these resources are used in a really positive and progressive manner.
How do you see African Americans helping with that?
African Americans as being part of the African family. And once they wake up to the idea that there is this huge reservoir of people, of talent, of resources that exists on the continent to which they can fit themselves so easily, I think it could be a major, major incentive for people in the entertainment world, in the business world, and those who are in agriculture, in the colleges, in academia. All of these can all come together and work towards this new. Some of these words sometimes sounds a little bit grandiose. You talk about Renaissance, but I can see the possibility of a new rebirth and revival of the black peoples of the world, in which hopefully the year of return will prove to be an important ingredient.
And timing is important because in the United States, I mean, we're 24 years away from America becoming a nation majority people of color. That's by 2043 that's going to happen. It's between Latinos, African Americans, Asians, Native Americans will be the majority in the country. You look at what's happening in Europe as well. Many of those countries are freaking out because the reality is in Germany, in Italy, in those countries, whites are not, their population is shrinking. And so, the next generation will be a generation that already the world is 2/3 people of color. But when you talk about Western countries, they're going to be dominant. And so to me, this is where these 24 years, the next quarter of a century to me is important for African Americans, other people of color to really say, let's be in position to assume power and not be in a situation where we have numerical numbers, unfortunately, but not have the opportunities controlling the political and economic levers.
So the solution, for me, the solution is the development of this continent. That is the catalyst. That is what is going to make the difference in this trajectory that you've outlined. It's the development of Africa. And I think that this century, the reordering and reorganization of the world that is going to take place, the most significant contribution is going to be made from this continent. And once we have turned on the key, we have found the key for our own organization, for the organization of the black peoples of the world, we're going to make a significant difference to the way the world has worked up till now.
Last question for you, Reverend Leon Sullivan. For a long time was about forging those relationships. Do you plan, I understand next year's an election year, you'll be busy here, but do you plan to organize, let's say, a 1-day or a 2-day conference in the United States that not driven by the government, but really pulling together the best and brightest, those minds, economic and culture of African Americans, and bringing others as well. To say, let's sit down and make it happen.
I think it's a very good idea. And these are the things that Akwesi Agyeman and the people who are going to be in the forefront of what we're doing here are already trying to organize and deal with. But I think it's an excellent idea where we need to explore this and other ideas as well, so that we continue to keep alive this intercourse, this bridge across the Atlantic. We have to make sure that it is in place and that it's a two-way bridge all the time where we work.
Well, we'll be there to live stream the whole event so everybody can see it and participate. So we'll do that. And I'll be back soon because the Asante King is a big-time golfer, and so am I.
Oh, I see.
And so when I told him I have a 6.6 handicap, his eyes lit up, and he said, "When are you leaving? Let's play." So he wanted to play this morning, but I had to be at your breakfast. So I have to come back so he and I can hit the golf course.
It's good. It's good. But it's good of you to have come.
Absolutely.
And we expect to see a lot of you.
I appreciate it.
In months and years ahead.
We'll be back.
It's
Mr.
good.
President, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we certainly appreciate the President of Ghana for that exclusive interview. I'm going to go to my panel in just 1 second, but I did want to share a few thoughts. I sent a tweet out where we talked about in that interview there, about the economic opportunities that exist for African Americans doing business in Ghana. And of course, you had some fools who always have to comment on certain stuff, who began to chirp, calling the year of return a scam. You have these people who say, oh, how does this benefit black people in the United States? Here's what's interesting. The Mandela Research Company did a study to show that African Americans spend every year $63 billion on travel. Most of that is in the United States. Yet, when African Americans, what's the number one international destination? Caribbean. Number 2, Mexico. So to all the haters out there about the year of return and the black people who are traveling to Ghana, let me ask y'all a question. How much money are black folks getting when we go to the Caribbean or go to Mexico? When black people are going to France and visiting all the museums, please tell me how African Americans are, quote, benefiting. See, this is why I can't stand and why I called out some people who've never been to Africa, who also don't have a passport, who love to run, and thirdly, who ain't never run a business, running their mouths about what black folks should be doing and who's benefiting. Here's the reality. There are African Americans who have tour companies who have been creating these various tours of the folks who are going to Ghana. Now, if we're going to Mexico and going to France, and all of a sudden I see a whole bunch of black people on social media going to Thailand, please explain to me why we can't go to Ghana. There are resorts in Haiti. Tell me why we can't go to Haiti. So please explain to me why we don't have the opportunity. While I was in Ghana, I was talking to a woman who told me about a sister from the United States who wanted to create her own waste management company. Well, if you look at the United States, the company Waste Management dominates this industry in the U.S. So she said, where could I take this knowledge and desire for a waste management company and be able to create something that's a business? She goes to Ghana and is doing very well. Years ago, I interviewed a sister who's a big-time golfer who left Maryland and moved to Ghana, who opened 2 golf stores and was a golf pro there as well. Business. Why am I saying all of that? Because here you have Ghana, probably next to Nigeria, arguably the most advanced economy in Africa, that needs, as the president just said, the expertise and the knowledge of African Americans. Yet the problem that we have to contend with is that there are black people in the United States who are so ignorant to the fact that our perceptions and view of Africa have been the result of white folks in media. There are black people today who literally ask the question, do they have hot water there? What do they eat there? I was talking to my tour driver, I got it on video, there was a white woman from Canada who was upset because she thought when she came to Ghana, she was going to see people living in trees. You heard the president say in that interview, no, we are not swinging from trees here in Ghana. So what I would like is for African Americans to recognize that when we are running around with these perceptions and I heard this and heard that, it's really been driven by white media, by those Tarzan movies, by all these other movies and television shows. Y'all know, if you ask somebody about Africa, you know what they first gonna say? Flies all around some poor African kid's face in one of those Feed the People commercials. That's really what sort of drives this whole view. And so when I talked about the creation of opportunities, and people start saying, well, how's that gonna help us? I said, do you know how dumb y'all sound? There are people from all across the world opening businesses in the United States. Hell, in black neighborhoods. So explain to me, how is it the rest of the world can participate in a global economy, but somehow African Americans can't participate in a global economy? And so if you're African American, consider Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, South Africa, and other places for opportunity. When you see this 2-hour special we're putting together, you will see me interviewing expatriates, African Americans who have been living in Ghana 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. You will see how individuals are doing. You will see how they are taking their knowledge and bringing it to that country. As the president said, vast resources. If you listen to the interview, he said, when African Americans get over this and recognize the vast resources and people that we have here, then you will see the level of opportunity. Who's putting money in Africa? The Chinese are.
There you go.
Who's putting money in Africa? The Lebanese are.
Yes.
All of these other people across the globe are putting money in the continent. And where are we? 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are African nations. Now see, Here's part of the problem here. See, some of y'all keep listening to uninformed black folks who perpetuate the notion that we're broke. I played the video for you of John Hope Bryant, who said that if you're African American, if you got $50,000 or $100,000 saved up, and see, some of y'all are probably saying, those are unicorns. No, they're not. Talk to the black people who have pensions, and you will see what those pensions deliver. He said if you look at the currency in South Africa, the rand is trading at 12 to 14, so 12 to 14 to the dollar. So he says if you had $100,000 US dollars, if you move to South Africa, you're a millionaire. Yeah, 100,000 times 12 or 14. The cedi in Ghana, the exchange rate is 5.7. So that means if you had 10,000 US dollars, that means that translates into 50,700 Ghanaian dollars. That's a different economic outcome. I was talking to Michelle McKinney-Hammond, who said that her home in Ghana cost what she spends in 6 months for her home in Ghana was what she'll spend monthly in Chicago. I interviewed a brother who moved his whole family from Chicago. Why am I laying all of this out? It's because the only way black people, African Americans, are going to think differently is when this changes. I said that in the interview. Africans have a view that has been driven by colonizers. We have perspectives driven by white supremacy. Too many of us were not born reading black newspapers, reading Claude Burnett's Associated Negro Press, understanding where we come from. Yeah, we have to admit what white supremacy has done to us and how we view our own people. Now, I see some of y'all comments. Some of y'all say, well, Africans feel this way when they come here. Who do you think they got it from? Let me further unpack that. When somebody says, well, Africans feel this way about black people, how do they know that? By movies, by TV shows, by mass media. So if we have not gotten a fair shake through mass media, of course the world is going to think black people are one way when that's what mass media has shown them. Reverse it. What's our view of Africans? Same thing. The president of Ghana said is that when we deal with what he called the mental and intellectual institution, and you heard him say, when African Americans wake up to the people and the resources on this continent, what I am saying to you is that it is shameful to listen to people who say the year of return is a sham. Because when I saw black people, African Americans, learning the history, learning about what took place, things not seen in our history books, learning about the various tribes and chiefs in Ghana, learning about the knowledge and the history there, it gives you a whole different appreciation for education. Because see, we got to be honest. What we have been taught about Africa is they ain't nothing but a bunch of jungle people who are broke and starving, which is why we went to a place in Ghana where you thought you were driving through Beverly Hills. That's why I talked to a brother who is developing a $250 million, 2,100-acre master plan community that will build 25,000 homes that will service 100,000 people, that will have shops and schools, that will have infrastructure, all those different things. Here's the reality. There's an opportunity for us in developing nations that's different than where we are in this country where stuff is already developed. So why is it? In fact, it was interesting. The interview with the brother doing the master plan development, he says that normally what happens in Ghana is that you just build a house and you pay for it in cash. And some people may take 10 years. But there's a problem. He says there's no infrastructure. He said, we don't have a mortgage system. He said Ghana is wide open for black people who understand the mortgage business. Let me help y'all even further. He said there are many Ghanaians in the United States who are buying homes there. He said so the opportunity for black banks is to actually finance Ghanaians or even African Americans and others who want to buy a home there through our financial instruments right here. So you ain't even got to leave the country to participate in the economy of Ghana. This is not about selling anybody on one African nation. There are 55 countries in Africa. What this is about is for black people to stop believing white supremacy and to understand that there's an opportunity for us to have a mutually beneficial relationship, but that only will happen if we stop listening to people who don't travel, who never sat across the table from anybody, who don't even own a business in the U.S. If anybody is trying to tell you about not doing business in Ghana, who don't even have a business here, tell them shut the hell up. It's time for some folks to grow up. It's time for some of y'all to stop listening to those people who don't know jack. I want to go to my panel now. Your thoughts about the interview, go ahead.
Well, I was just wanting to go back to your point about the $63 billion in tourism. I think that one of the things that was the best part about the return to Ghana is how welcoming it was. Because black people, we do the treks, right? We do trek to Miami for Memorial Day weekend or New Orleans for Essence Festival. And we're not always treated that well. You know, they add automatic gratuity because they feel like black people don't tip.
CIAA,
right.
the biker stuff in Florida and in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Right. We go all these places and complain about how we're treated when we travel.
Exactly. And it's so cool to go to Dubai. It's so cool to go to, I've been to those places, Thailand and Mexico. Why can't it be just as cool to go to Ghana? So I think that what they did was absolutely amazing. And black people, we should go spend our money where our money is welcome instead of spending our money where we're treated like second-rate or second-class citizens. And if you have the capital or the expertise to have some investments, wherever that may be, whether it's Ghana or, like you said, any other 55 African countries, then go on ahead and take advantage of that as well. It's completely asinine to write off something without even exploring it if you have the means to invest in something like that.
You talk about infrastructure in these countries underdeveloped right now. One of the issues I deal with is energy poverty. And it's 1.8 billion people around the world without electricity. There are a lot of these people living in Africa. Right now, I also deal with the African Energy Chamber of Commerce. And Africa is open to doing business when it comes to natural gas and oil. They are not caught up in this global, this climate change as much as we are here in the United States. So when you start talking about opening your mind to opportunities, that's what's taking place right now in Africa right now. You mentioned China. China just put in a huge amount of money into developing offshore and energy development in Africa.
Yeah, because what China's doing, China realizes they had dwindling resources, and so China's doing exactly what colonizers did 100, 200 years ago. That's what they're doing, okay? And what the African countries are dealing with is you need investment for infrastructure.
We'll give it
now, unfortunately, a lot of bad deals are being cut because, frankly, when you have nobody else to compete with the Chinese, hey, that's really all that you got. And so I'm not under the illusion that you're gonna have African Americans who can maybe walk into African nations with $1 billion, $2 or $3 billion. But what I am saying is that if you step back and look at how are economic opportunities created, they are created where there is a need. The president is there saying is that African Americans have a level of expertise that we don't have. And you take expertise with need, you now have opportunity.
Sure.
And so that's the thing. But it's amazing to me, Lauren, listen, again, the people who go, oh, this is a marketing deal. I remember in the late 70s and 80s seeing the commercials. Jamaica. Come back to Jamaica, make it your home. That was the Jamaican tourism industry
Yeah.
that targeted the United States, and guess what? It worked. So I don't care if Ghana has a tourism board that is trying to get African Americans to come to Ghana. Okay, I'm cool with that.
Right.
I mean, because again, black people are traveling all over the place spending money. How in the hell is it a bad idea if we choose to spend our tourism dollars in the Bahamas, black, in Jamaica, black, or in Ghana, black?
Right. Yeah. There's a few things. One is I met the president of Barbados at Art Collins' brunch during CBC week.
Prime Minister of
Yeah,
Barbados.
Prime Minister of Barbados, and she was unbelievable. It kind of reminds me of how now these nations are starting getting more and more involved, you know, over here with our politics as an advantage, which I think is a great thing. I wouldn't pay any attention to these people online because the people criticize, because it's sort of like, you know, with social media, part of the currency now is just that you run your mouth about whatever it is that's happening and criticize it.
The reason I'm calling them out is because, again, this is a huge issue. It's the lack of knowledge. No, seriously.
Right.
It's the lack of knowledge. It's African Americans not realizing
Right.
where. So if you have this view of Africa, first of all, too many people think Africa is a country.
Yeah. Right. And not a continent.
I mean, no, that just doesn't be straight up. Okay, that's first. If you ask somebody how many countries in Africa, most of them can't tell you it's 55. Okay, and that East Africa ain't the same as West Africa,
No, it's not.
or Central Africa,
Right.
or North Africa, or South Africa, any of those. But again, so what I'm trying to do is to get us to say, I mean, let me open this. Let me realize that my view of Africa has been formed, frankly, through the prism of white folks.
Well, they think that they're, you know, so woke to sort of know that. But what you end up realizing is that one of the things that makes you famous and popular in this life right now with the type of technology that we have is just simply punching up and criticizing what anyone else is doing. In fact, there's an entire industry for that. It's really called op-eds and opinions in the newspaper and our journalism. Like, that is what gets you clicks. That is what gets you attention. You can do an entire career off of that right now. You can do an entire career off of producing absolutely nothing other than criticism. And frankly, if you have no talent, if you can't sing or dance, if you can't sing like Aretha Franklin, or you can't play an instrument, that's what you can do. People typically gravitate to the things that they can do. And so criticizing what you're doing or criticizing like what everyone else is doing, it's become currency. And people make money off of it. So it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, really, previous to our current social media situation, if you think about it, so much was based on actually doing things and going out and doing things and not just staring at the computer screen. Now it's sort of taken over by that. And so when you think about, you know how it is, Roland. You think about the speaking fees and the criticism. It's like you can build an entire career off that. And that's what people do.
The thing here is, what I'm looking at here is what is opportunity. Because see, let's take gentrification. I'm really sick and tired of black people talking about gentrification.
While they're selling their property.
Now again, let me unpack this.
Washington, D.C.
Right.
Does it mean
Brooklyn,
that I support gentrification? No. What I'm saying is, I'm tired of us talking about gentrification
Right.
and not doing something about gentrification.
Right.
When I moderated the Urban League State of Black America deal, that was a big piece of their report with the Howard Theater. And I turned and I said to Mark Morial, I said, next year when we come back here, I want to see that the National Urban League has created a fund specifically to deal with gentrification. I said, look, if we're going to bitch and moan about folks coming to our neighborhoods, buying stuff up, I'm sorry, don't we also know it's available? Don't we also know that somebody's trying to sell it? So if we know that,
Right.
and they know it, why in the hell we ain't beating them to the punch to buy it?
But
Now,
a lot of that.
hold on. There was a brother and there's a brother and sister Reese, in Atlanta. They did a crowdfunding campaign, raised $9.7 million in a week.
Okay.
To say, we gonna buy up stuff in our neighborhoods.
Right.
$9.7 million. All I'm saying is this here. If you apply gentrification, what's happened to our communities here, it's the exact same thing with the Chinese coming to African nations, and Lebanese, and Indians, and Pakistanis. So what are we gonna do? Just stay in here and bitch about it?
Right.
Or are we gonna say, how can we use collective cooperative action to be able to change it? That's what I'm saying has to happen.
You wouldn't even need collective cooperative action to kill gentrification. What kills gentrification is holding on to your family's property. That's a lot of it right there. See, we like the quick hit of the sale of the home, right? I mean, one of my
remember, the sale goes to, and this is where we got to be honest.
Right.
The sale goes to, we grew up in places, we moved other places. We don't want to be bothered.
Right.
And so, I can do the quick buck and sale.
Right.
Somebody's going to buy it.
But Airbnb and that is changing the game.
I understand that.
Right. So now what is the excuse now? You can always figure out a way to hold on to the deed of property. And so the idea that you've got to sell the home, we like the big payout. We like that big...
Or the short term.
The short term.
Hold on, Richie, go ahead.
I would just add that that's not always the case. Some of these people, they got in a situation where the taxes were so high.
I understand.
They couldn't afford these pieces of property anymore. And so it's unfortunate that a lot of blacks, particularly here in Washington, D.C., actually got into that type of situation.
Right, Risa, go ahead.
Yeah, I think part of the problem, too, is the lack of the blueprint. I mean, we don't have a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of people who have pulled capital together, this cooperative economics. That's what one of the tenets of Kwanzaa. And so the how part is really the tough part. We might have, 10,000 here, 10,000 here, 10,000 there, but how do we pull those resources together and make something happen out of that? I think that is where we really lack the ability to turn our small amounts of capital into an investment, whether it's here or...
If you can't turn a house in Washington, D.C. into an investment where you can pay the taxes, you need your head examined.
But see,
Washington, D.C. is the second most expensive city in this country.
I got you.
And there's no way...
But to Derek's point...
Here.
But here's Derek's point. The reason I understand that, there was a neighborhood called the Heights in Houston. Okay, older neighborhood, older residents who were living there. All of a sudden, yuppies started moving in. Started tearing down homes, building mini mansions. Okay? You had home prices in this neighborhood that were low 100s. All of a sudden, people start coming in, seeing opportunity. It's near downtown. They started building homes that were $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Why? Cheap land. You could tear the home. You could buy it for $120,000, tear it down, build you a $400,000 house. What happens as soon as you do that? When it's time for tax assessment, your tax assessment ain't based on your house. Your tax assessment is based upon the other houses around you. Right. Many of those elderly folks who've been living there for a long time got literally priced out of their own neighborhood because of the property taxes that were around them. The point I'm making, though, is that either we can have conversations, panel discussions on stage somewhere, at universities, on social media, on television about, man, gentrification is so bad, what's happening? Or we can say, wait a minute, go down to City Hall, planning, zoning. We see what's coming down the pipeline. We see what's happening in the next 5 or so years.
There's no tax break in Texas for elderly residents.
Bottom line is, property value is based upon...
It's in New York they have
value. But y'all also got rent control. We ain't got rent control.
Yeah, but New York, you have a major tax break for elderly residents.
But what I'm saying is...
To deal with exactly what you
What I'm saying is, that's what's happening. What I'm saying to African Americans is, how do you think collectively to say, wait a minute, either we can just complain all day about neighborhoods changing, or we say, if somebody gonna buy it, we buy it. I mean, so again, we can either pick which one. And all I'm saying when it comes to what's happening in African countries, I'm telling you, I went to Ghana in 2008. When I went to Ghana in 2008, I stayed at what was then considered the top hotel. I was online before. I wonder how that hotel ranks now. The top hotel I stayed in Ghana in 2008 is now number 17 in Accra. Number 17. 750,000 people from African Americans alone go to Ghana this year. You can probably guess. You could probably guesstimate. Because the plan they have is this 10-year plan. Take the year of return, institutionalize it. You can say, now, normally Ghana did 75,000 visas from the United States. 750,000 this year. The number's probably going to be closer to 1 million by the end of January. Which means that you can say, just based upon numbers, Ghana is probably going to be doing annually 250,000 from the U.S. each year for the next 10 years. That's opportunity. That's literally opportunity for African Americans to say, well, hell, black people are going to be going to Ghana. Well, hell, I can't hold up. I can create my own tour company, my own travel company. Who can I connect with there when it comes to top restaurants, hotels? Again, opportunity. That's all I'm trying to get us to think about it. And again, for the people who say that's crazy, it's going to happen. This is going to happen. More black entertainers will be going to Ghana.
Yeah.
That's
Each year
going
it
to
gets
happen.
bigger.
Right. They told me that was a Christian conference. It's called The Experience in Nigeria. 850,000 attended annually.
Oh, wow.
Other African nations are seeing what happened to Ghana. I've been told that there are 4 or 5 others that are saying, wait a minute, we better create our own sort of tourism focus, and not South Africa, some of the other countries. I'm just saying, I need us I just think for us, we got to start thinking differently in terms of not just thinking in this country, got to think beyond our own shores.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's what we got to do. All right, folks, got to go to a break. When we come back, more Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, as the marijuana momentum continues, our the friends at marijuanastock.org have already reached more than half their funding goal for the hemp CBD investment. That's right. If you want to take advantage of this great opportunity, you need to do so now because it won't last much longer. And now we talk about the hemp plant, the good cousin of marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Also, if you don't know, hemp farming is now legal in the United States, creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. Now, it's an investment opportunity, and that's where the folks at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed high-paying tenants. That's right, they're hemp CBD landlords, so you can get in on the action. All you gotta do is do this here, folks. Go to their crowdfunding campaign. You can invest as little as $200 up to $10,000. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. It's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game and get in the game now. Now, recent poll conducted by Third Way and the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies shows that the majority of black folks are more interested in voting in the 2020 presidential election than they were in 2016. Why? Crazy ass Donald Trump. A survey of 1,200 black voters and non-voters concluded that the motivation to remove Trump from office is the driving force for black Americans to head to the polls next November. Derek Trump thanked black people in 2016 for not voting. He can holler Blexit and you can have Candace running around and all the rest of them. It's some black people who realize, you know what? What the hell was I thinking sitting my ass on the sidelines in 2016? And this man is now in the Oval Office.
I saw that poll, but Politico also had a poll where it talks about there are several black people who are supporting the president. So,
Well, first of all, there's several.
there's several polls out there that indicate that more blacks are supporting the president right now. So that's just one poll. And I just think right now, Roland, when you look at some of the stuff that's being put in front of us, I think people are so blinded by the hatred of Donald Trump, and so, rightfully so, that some of these policies aren't necessarily what's the best thing for African Americans. And I think a lot of people are seeing that. Hence some of these other polls that would indicate that more black people could possibly be voting for Donald Trump in 2020.
Reason black women hate the Republican Party more than anybody else.
Right.
Republicans have said that.
Yes.
No group hates the GOP more than black women.
Right.
What the White House is trying to do is they know that. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to target black men. Okay, a recent poll showed black men supporting Trump around 15%. The White House, their goal is to move that to 18 or 20%.
Right. Well, I want to just be clear. White people gave us Trump. We always talk about the margins and, oh, more black people have voted in this state or that state, but we ignore the 60 million white people that voted for Trump. So before we talk about black people and how we vote or who didn't vote, white people gave us Trump. But as far as black women, yes, black women are hip to the game. We are still not fooling with Trump. We did our part in 2016 to vote for Hillary Clinton, and we are absolutely not going for Trump. As far as black men, I mean, I had a conversation with a black Trump supporter on Thanksgiving, and I was like, what is happening here? So I'm not saying that it's a terrible idea. I can't say it's a terrible idea to target black men more so than black women, but I think overall black people have enough sense to know that Trump is not good for us. But
it's issues, though, Roland. I mean,
Define them.
One of the issues I point to what's going on in Virginia right now. Virginia with the sanctuary cities and towns and everything over gun control, over the gun rights right now. Well, Virginia right now elected Democrats for the General Assembly and everything is changing. And so right now they're trying to take the guns away from these folks. Well, the folks that are coming out to fight about, yeah, it's a lot of white people, but there's a lot of black people too in Virginia right now. You can't take my guns away from me. So when you start looking at each individual state,
first of all, no one is taking guns away.
That's what.
No.
Okay.
Gun control and taking guns away.
Okay.
is not the same.
The AR-15 rifle, which these people hunt with, that is one of the guns that they're trying to take away from.
And the same AR-15 rifle, and when you look at mass shootings, is the preferred gun of mass shooters.
I'm not debating that issue with you.
Okay,
I'm debating that the issue of the Second Amendment.
AR-15 to hunt, your ass can't shoot.
I don't disagree with you on that, and that's not the issue I'm debating on.
If there are 1,000 guns to choose from,
Shorty,
and they say we're going to ban the AR-15, no, they're not banning guns.
That's not what I'm debating,
They're
Roland.
banning a gun.
I'm debating how many people are showing up right now in Virginia on this particular issue, and it ain't white or black. It's an issue. Blacks are supporting this thing right now.
So yeah, so what Governor Northam has proposed doesn't have anything to do with taking anybody's guns, all right? So this idea that somebody would take somebody's guns away is completely ridiculous.
That is not.
They're coming to the meetings typically talking, a lot of people talking about considerations for hunting. Some people are just talking about the fact that they don't want anything changed, period. They want to be able to get any firearm that they want, and they view any sort of gun-related legislation as a violation of the Second Amendment. And, you know, I'm a gun person. My father was a hunter safety instructor, and he was law enforcement, and he had guns all over the house. So the idea that would happen is not, you know, I think it's not something that's likely to happen.
There's a young lady right now.
I mean, no, I've been to some of these meetings. You know, my mother's from Virginia, my dad is from New York, and there's plenty of people at the meeting. That's all good. It's good, I think, anytime people express any sort of civic activism, quite frankly, even if I disagree with it a little bit. But, and there's going to be a major rally in Virginia on January 20. But to get back to the Trump black voter thing, I mean, I don't care how many flunkies you put in the background at some speech holding a sign or having a T-shirt behind Donald Trump. I don't care how much you want to talk about your polls in Politico, wherever you saw that. When that vote is taken, okay, in 365 days, a little less than 365 days in 2020, I absolutely guarantee you that African Americans will be having a over 90% turnout against this president. We've already seen the signs. Speaking of Virginia, we saw the first sign in Virginia with the wave in 2017. Then we saw it again this year in 2019. Then we saw Mr. Bashir in Kentucky, a very red state, win that. And now we're seeing, what, 29 Republicans retiring in the U.S. House. All the signs are there that people are sick of Donald Trump. It is likely across demographics because, of course, Kentucky is not a particularly black state. And, you know, Virginia's only 20% black, and we're seeing these waves of Democrats get into office. So all of that would tell you that this electorate is ready to throw this guy out. The only thing left to happen, of course, is the Democrats messing it up and nominating the wrong person, which is still in play. But I think that you can see the numerical stages set. I'm not talking about polls. I'm talking about elections, people getting elected to office. So that would tell you something is up here.
Also, I think what you have is, first of all, black folks, black organizations, and also now even the Democratic Party are awake after frankly falling asleep. What happened in Wisconsin in 2016, the voter ID bill, how that impacted some 200,000 people. Not just black people, but also a lot of white folks.
Right.
Same thing would happen in Pennsylvania. I think what you're also dealing with, North Carolina. So, for instance, Obama wins North Carolina 14,000 votes in 2008. White Republicans lose a damn mind. That North Carolina had one of the highest turnouts in 2008. The white Republican North Carolina was like, oh, hell no. They put the clamps down, and then the battle has been taking place for the last decade there. The tide has shifted in a significant way with Cooper being elected governor there, Democrats controlling the state Supreme Court, and of course their rulings when it came to gerrymandering there, all those different things happening. North Carolina is going to look a lot differently in 2020 than it did, depending upon to Lawrence Bone, who the nominee is. North Carolina, I think, is going to be a state that's back in play for the Democrats because of black turnout.
Right.
The thing here is Donald Trump, this is what he's going to do. He's going to come out and he's going to yell, First Step Act. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you're going to ask, how many people did the First Step Act actually help nationally? First, there are more than 2.3 million people who are in prisons in America. 10% of that are in federal prisons. So really, you're talking about the First Step Act maximizing to the number it will help anywhere from 4 to 6. I've heard 7,000. Not degrading it, I'm saying exactly what it is. But when I look at federal judges appointed for life, many of them opposed to civil rights, opposed to those issues. The Trump administration just gutting civil rights. HUD, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, all these different places. And so Trump can go, First Step Act, he's going to say, oh, black unemployment. First of all, black unemployment was at its high, around 16, 17%. After the financial crisis that took place under 8 years of Bush, Obama comes in. Black unemployment cut more than half under Obama. Black unemployment was around 6.5% when Trump came in, 5.5 now. So basically, Donald, you dropped it by a point.
But it is the lowest in history.
No, that's fine.
In history.
But let me be clear. That don't happen without Obama's economic policies.
At what point does it become...
No, I just gave you the number.
Okay.
No, I just gave you the numbers.
Okay.
Almost 17% under Obama, and then all of a sudden, it goes down to 6.5 when he leaves.
It was terrible.
Let me say it again. Almost 17, down to 6.5 when he leaves. Trump comes in around 6.5. It's at 5.5. I'm going to give you credit for 1 point. What I'm not going to do is give you credit for 11 points. No. See, that's the deal. Trump wants us to believe that when he took over, black unemployment was around 17%. And he got it down to 5.5. No, he didn't.
He didn't, but here's the thing. I agree that if it happened on your watch, you should get the credit. Because I'm
giving the credit.
Yeah,
No, follow me here. Follow me here. I'm giving the credit.
I get it.
But I'm also giving you the numbers behind it. Because see, when you say, I'm the reason why black unemployment is lowest.
Right.
No, you're not.
The bigger point, though, is that the president's crazy. And it doesn't really matter what some of these numbers are because people know the president's crazy. So you can talk all you want about stats that are very nice. I mean, I'm not criticizing that. I'm not even criticizing First Step. I thought First Step was good legislation. And that's great that it passed. And we get, we can talk about how many people it affects, but, it did pass and it's a good thing. But the problem with this president is that he's morally corrupt. He's completely, he does things that are completely outside the law. They've never cared about any of the rules that they have to follow as government officials, and they flaunt that on a daily basis. And, the fact that that's just sort of obvious and out in the air, and he thinks he can get away with that, and people aren't noticing it, to say nothing of people like Stephen Miller sitting in the White House, the president calling, you said in the interview, S-hole countries, all that. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on. So you can flash all the stats you want, but black voters are going to vote against this president. They're not going to be the only ones. You're going to have a high degree, in my view, of non-black voters that will vote against him. And I think he's going to end up out of office. I don't predict that he gets reelected. I don't know about you, but
well, I don't think that you could take for granted that black voter turnout is going to be sky high, because we have several suppressive tactics that are happening right now. You have the social media suppression that's happening. It's not about conversion anymore. It's just about suppressing the vote. It's about demoralizing people. Then you have the suppression at the polls. We don't know what's happening with the security of our ballot boxes. So we don't even know how secure the vote is. We don't have paper ballots. The Trump administration is making zero efforts to secure our elections. We know that there's meddling, there's interference, there's all these things that are happening. Plus, we're losing these voting battles. In Georgia, hundreds of thousands of people are being purged. So people are going to have to keep re-registering. We're going to have to keep fighting the same battles just to keep people on the ballots. So I don't think that we can just say because black people have a very, very low regard for President Trump, I don't like to call him president, y'all's President Trump, that means that he's going to be defeated. We have to make sure that we are energizing, that we are keeping black voters motivated and speaking about black issues so that we know that there is a large stake in the game.
Well, we already know sitting here right now it's going to come down to 5 states, right? I mean, we know that it's going to be, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina. I mean, we know that. So where the black voters are in those states is what this really is about, in my view. He barely got off. Yeah. He barely got in the first time. I mean,
77, 78,000 votes.
3 million,
in 3 states.
3 million votes collectively against him. I mean, he sort of lucked out getting in the first time against a, in my view, bad candidate, Hillary Clinton. And her not being such a great candidate means that if you put somebody up there that's better, he should really lose by a lot. But
and right now, I just don't even see who's better.
Now that's the question.
Right now, who's going to beat this man?
Stop.
Who's going to beat him right now?
First, when you say who's better, first of all,
okay, maybe that was the wrong way.
You ain't lying.
But who's going to beat him?
Andrew Yang.
Who's going to beat him?
Hell, Marianne Williamson is better than Trump's dumbass.
Well, everyone's polling. Everyone's
polling
over him. Almost every candidate is voting is polling over him. But I'm not a big poll fan, I have to say. And frankly, I don't think Pete Buttigieg can beat him.
Here's the piece. Here's the piece.
I don't think half these guys can beat him.
First of all, I'm not paying attention to national polls because the presidential election isn't a national poll.
Right.
A presidential election is a state poll.
That's right.
That's what it is. So it's based upon what those states are.
Absolutely.
The real issue is this here when it comes to Trump. And next door, of course, you got these white evangelicals who are hugely backing Trump. They're all pissed off at Christianity Today because they published an editorial calling for Trump to step down.
And they told the truth, right.
And they did. And they got upset by that, calling Trump grossly immoral and suggesting he should be removed from office. And, of course, that has ticked off all these white evangelicals. So here's what you're dealing with. The New York Times also had this story about these rabid Trump people who, frankly, are racist, but they call themselves patriots. Here's what's going to happen. Let me just go ahead and be clear, okay? The last election, they thought that this would be that 2016 was going to be the first election where less than 70% of all voters were going to be white. It's around 71, 72%. Here's the reality, okay? Trump's wild-eyed white folks are going to vote.
Right.
You can go back to 2016. I said on MSNBC, I was yelling it. I told Hillary's people this directly. I said everywhere I went. No poll can measure white people who have not voted.
Ever.
You can't.
Right.
You can't measure who you don't know will turn out. Trump ran up huge numbers in rural places. So if you take a huge increase in rural places, you take voter suppression in places where largely black people are, but also voter suppression targeting elderly, voter suppression targeting young whites who are more likely to vote Democrat, then you get a 78,000 vote win. Okay? That's really what happened there. Let me just be real clear here. Donald Trump is the last white hope for these people. Let's not sugarcoat this. Let's call this what it is. I have been saying since 2009, we're operating in the age of white fear. Donald Trump's immigration language, Donald Trump, all this sort of stuff is exactly what you're dealing with. These white folks, these white evangelicals, they don't care if this man was married 3 times. They don't care if he paid off a porn star. They don't care if he is a liar who lies about lying. Donald Trump is providing these white folks with exactly what they want. This white savior who's here for white people. He don't want no immigrants here. We're at our lowest levels. If they could import white folks from Denmark and Switzerland, boy, they would do it in a heartbeat. And he's actually said it.
Yeah.
Why can't we get more people from Denmark? They want white people in this country because everything is about 2043. The Republican Party is trying to lock down the federal bench because they see that train coming.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on here. And I think the Democratic candidate that knows how to articulate that, knows how to put it in an ad, knows how to make it perfectly clear the inherent danger this man is. Because let's also be clear, his love affair with Putin, that's about white folks too. Because Putin desperately wants a white society. Let's just call it what it is, okay? Stephen Miller, all these people, we know he's a racist, okay? We know this. Richard Spencer was the model, the role model for Stephen Miller when he was at Duke. Richard Spencer, the white supremacist. If a white supremacist was your role model in college, your ass, white supremacist.
Right.
We got the white woman who was from Breitbart, who said, I was a white supremacist. Stephen Miller, me and him were tight. If a white supremacist say you're white supremacist, I'm going to believe the white supremacist.
Yeah.
I think.
So if Margaret Sanger was tight with Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton...
One second, hold up.
How do we put that together?
Hold up. Was she?
Yeah.
Who?
Margaret Sanger. Hillary Clinton has admitted that Margaret Sanger was one of her mentors.
You're trying to go through eugenics.
Was Margaret Sanger?
I'm going to eugenics. I'm just. If you putting that.
No.
You associating your man with him. I'm associating Hillary Clinton with her.
Question: was Margaret Sanger working on the Hillary Clinton campaign?
No.
Was Margaret? No. 1 second. No. Let me ask you a question.
No.
1 second.
Hillary Clinton talking about shithole countries.
1 second.
Was Hillary Clinton pushing abortion?
Was Hillary Clinton talking about racism and having Stephen Miller up in the White House?
Allow me to ask you a question.
Answer's no, right?
Was Hillary Clinton
push abortion?
Answer's no.
Allow me to ask you. Answer's no, right?
Derek.
Answer's no.
Derek.
Answer's no.
Was Margaret Sanger working on the campaign of Hillary Clinton?
No.
Was Stephen Miller working on the campaign of Donald Trump?
Yes.
Is Stephen Miller right now senior advisor in the White House to Donald Trump?
Is Margaret? Are Democrats killing abortion right now? Are Democrats killing babies?
Let's talk about
yes or no.
Democrats killing babies?
Hold up. Yes or no?
Let's talk about abortion.
Are Democrats killing babies?
Hold on. Answer my question.
Are Democrats killing babies?
No. Guess who's having abortions?
Black people.
No.
Black
white people.
Okay.
Oh, no white people having abortions?
Oh,
that's not what I'm saying. See, y'all trying to twist my words. Y'all trying to twist my words.
No. First of all, I asked you a question.
Don't try to twist my words. Don't try to twist my words. Don't do that.
I first asked you a question.
Don't do that.
I first asked you a question. Is Stephen Miller working right now, senior advisor in the White House? That's a fact.
Yes.
Now, 2, are black people having abortions?
Yes, they are.
Are white folks having abortions?
Yes, they are.
Are Latinos having abortions?
Yes, they are.
Is it the law?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And an abortion is not killing a baby.
Are you conservative?
Be clear.
Are you conservative?
Yeah, he is. But here's the piece, though.
Conservative, you think the government should be involved in a man or woman's decision about having a baby?
No,
Really?
Nope, I don't.
So then, what's your policy on abortion?
My policy, what I'm saying is that more black people disproportionately have abortions. That's all I'm saying.
And you think
Period.
the
And I didn't say the government had a thing to do with it.
I'm just checking.
I didn't say I'm a man. I ain't got nothing to do.
Just checking.
Keep my
Just
keep my
checking.
hands off your body.
Just
That's
checking.
not what I'm saying.
All right.
But
why are we talking about abortion then?
But yeah,
Because Margaret Sanger and Hillary Clinton.
And Hillary Clinton is not on the ballot in
Okay,
2020.
anyway, what was your question, Roland?
No, my question was, now it's very clear in terms of what you're dealing with. And what you're dealing with right now is white fear driving these policies. The reason these white conservative evangelicals are going crazy, the Franklin Grahams of the world, Robert Jeffers, when you have Tony Perkins, Ralph Reed, Jerry Falwell Jr., it's because Donald Trump is the last great white hope.
And just think, with
But
all
what
that
folks
voting,
don't realize is if Donald Trump, if he's not going to get impeached, but, you know, Mike Pence
No,
is
stop.
allowed.
Let's do it factual.
He's
Let's
impeached.
do it factual.
He's not going to get removed.
First of all, he got impeached.
He's not going to get removed.
Right, but here's the piece. It doesn't.
know that.
I fully understand who
We don't
Mike
know that.
Pence is,
Yeah, right.
what his background is, but guess what? It don't matter. He the same.
My point exactly.
So here's the piece.
I think he's worse.
But the election is still in November, which what we're talking about here. And what I'm saying is this here, is that if you're a Democrat, you better be willing to be real honest and say, no. Understand, this is what's going to happen. If we think that man crazy now, giving his ass 4 more years, where there are no repercussions.
I agree with
I
you.
actually think that the signs point to him getting thrown out. Because remember, with all the voting suppression, with all the nonsense, even with the bad candidacy of Hillary Clinton, she still got 3 million more votes than he did. So, I mean, I'm not sure that that there needs to be some sacred speech that somebody makes. I think the signs of the backlash are very obvious. We saw it in Virginia and Kentucky, and we're going to see it.
The real question is, are you going to see white women?
No, you're not.
See, that's no. Here's
No,
the
you're not. But
53%
it's
of white women voted for Trump. The latest polling we're seeing, he's polling around 42% among white women.
not to say he didn't show his craziness, but that was the Trump before we saw.
Oh no! I understand. First of all, hashtag we tried to tell you. We knew his ass was crazy. Okay, so all these folks who like Chuck Todd all of a sudden now realizes Republicans were lying on his show.
Right, but now we're seeing indication that white suburban women are going to show up.
No, I understand.
And see, that's my point. Once you get outside of these metropolitan cities, i.e. Atlanta, you in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? And once you get outside of these urban cities, those are the folks that got this man elected.
But we're
those
seeing
are the folks that are gonna turn
signs
out
that's
and do
starting
it
to
again.
crumble.
No. But here's the point that you have to deal with. It's a whole right now. Trump is not polling well in Iowa.
Right.
Why? It's a whole bunch of bankrupt ass farmers.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch. See, here's I'm telling you, this is where, now again, for all the people out there who can't stand Joe Biden, here's the reality, okay? This is, I do believe it, Reese. I think what you're seeing is, I think you got a lot of older black people who have bought into this whole idea that the only way to beat Donald Trump is to put another old white guy who can make white folks feel comfortable.
Yeah.
The bottom line is this here. Joe Biden goes in them places and goes, y'all broke. That managed terrorist fight caused you to lose your family farm.
Yeah.
Caused you to sit here, you on government assistance. See, the problem is this here. He's hurt a lot. Now, it's a few of them fools. I read one story, a guy who lost the family farm and said, I still vote for him.
Yeah.
You a dumbass.
Yeah.
You got to be a dumbass to lose your family farm as a result of the terror crisis and still vote for the dumbass who caused you to lose your family farm. Now, you just stupid.
This has been
But
studied.
I think.
Reese, go ahead.
But I think that a large part that's motivating a lot of Trump voters is cruelty. It's not about prosperity. It's not about having a better life for themselves. It's about making sure that other people are suffering.
It's race.
And that's why his immigration policy is such a driving factor for them. Because, hey, kids in cages kind of is a good thing for them. Our immigrants in these facilities that can't get vaccinations, they're like, yeah, they don't need vaccinations. There's so much cruelty that is animating these folks. And I don't know how you can necessarily appeal to them by saying, well, you're going to get a job or you're going to get better health care, when that's not really what they're looking at.
It's Southern strategy and it's race.
Yeah.
I mean, when you strip away the nonsense, okay, when you pull back the curtain, it comes down to they don't want to be related with the party that is related with African Americans and minority groups. That's what it comes down to. And for some reason, and you know, God bless the never Trumpers and the Republicans who said enough is enough of this, but they've been doing this since Goldwater. Yeah. It's the same formula over and over.
It is. Look, Derek. He is going again. If you ask the question, how is Donald Trump going to make the argument how he's been so great for black people? It's only two things he's going to mention. First Step Act and the lowest unemployment rate. That's all he's going to mention. He ain't going to mention wages. What you never hear Donald Trump talk about is black home ownership being at its lowest rate since 1968 with the Fair Housing Act. You ain't going to hear him talk about that, okay? You ain't going to hear them talk about any of that, okay? You're going to hear him try to talk about HBCUs, yeah, but you ain't really done jack. I mean, I can go down the line there.
Yeah.
And so there has to be, and there is, a very clear and concise counter to what he's going to say. But at the end of the day, what cannot happen in 2020 is for young black voters, and let me say this again so I'll go ahead and sit up, okay? Young voters now outnumber baby boomers. But let me be real clear.
But they don't vote.
Old folks vote. My mama and my daddy are both 72. My mama and my daddy work the polls in every election. My mama and my daddy gonna vote.
You made a point.
I keep telling all y'all young people.
Yep. They don't vote.
Tweets don't mean shit.
Right, right.
Voting does. I'm gonna tell y'all again the story that Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. told me. A group of young voters went to him and said, if you don't do this, we're gonna throw you out. Jesse Jr. said, y'all can kiss my ass. He said, you see that tile right there? He said, that is a residence home for old people. You know who's gonna put me back in office? All them old black women there. That's who gonna vote. If young people, if y'all say y'all care about climate change, and y'all care about the environment, and y'all can't stand racism, and y'all can't stand sexism, you're gonna have to get off your ass, mobilize each other, and vote. Derek, Donald Trump has no shot if young folks vote their numbers.
Agreed.
Like, no shot.
Agreed.
But it's also much easier to suppress the young vote because of social media, and people are very dismissive about this. But these certain, memes and these things permeate. I mean, how many times do we hear super predators from about Hillary Clinton? And so we haven't seen a lot of the Oppo research against the Democrats. I've seen quite a bit of it, and it can be very devastating. And the stuff that's out there about Trump is already known. So I think we have to really be careful about the fact that it's not about conversion anymore. It's not even about turnout as much as it is. It's much easier to suppress that. And so if people take that for granted, then they're going to be in for a shock come 2020.
First of all, you're not going to get conversion. I mean, first of all, this whole idea you're going to flip Republicans, that's a waste of your time. It's easier. Look, for black people, what this is going to be, this is going to have to be, let me be real clear, black people got to fund this. I talked about gentrification. I talked about everything else. Look, black folks can't wait for some white Democrat to decide how much money we're going to spend. No. Black organizations are going to need black people to contribute in a significant way to fund black turnout initiatives. No, just being straight up. That's what it's going to take.
That ain't
because no, it can't happen.
You're saying black organizations need to fund?
Hold on, wait, follow me here. This is what I mean. Black organizations who are on the ground know what the black people are. Look, I was in Ghana with Desmond Meade. Desmond broke down Amendment 4. He broke down how they mobilize folks. He said, with little or no money. He said, going into places where other folks don't want to go into, to mobilize folks. What has to happen is you got to send folk who know other folk, who trust other folk. What you can't have are these white Democrats sitting their ass in D.C., paying off a fellow white person whose organization to handle grassroots organization when really their definition of grassroots is a white kid with an iPad and a damn iPhone trying to go into neighborhoods that they don't know and they scared of.
Yeah.
No.
Robbie Mook.
Yes. The only way this is going to happen, and this is going to require, again, black folks to self-fund National Coalition of Black. I'm telling you, you can't sit around. No. See, first of all,
Barack Obama got into office.
You can't use Obama.
Why can't I use Obama?
No, you can't use.
Right.
No. You can't use Obama.
People.
No,
black people show up.
No, you can't. The reason you cannot use Obama you can't. Don't even bring Obama up.
But it proves you can do it without
don't even bring Obama up.
He's black, though.
Obama was an aberration. Obama was not elected because of an infrastructure.
If you're waiting for DNC to
I just told you. I ain't waiting on DNC. I ain't waiting on DCCC.
But their money.
You have organizations like Collective PAC that do that kind of stuff.
Right, but what I'm saying is this here. Collective PAC, National Coalition of Black Civil Participation, and
Higher Heights.
Higher Heights.
Yeah.
They are going to need black dollars.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is this here, because these black organizations will be waiting on white dollars. What I'm talking about is come January 1.
Yeah.
You're going to need these folks, putting folks on the ground, not waiting for somebody, and here it is, April, May, June, July, August. No, you're going to have to go into black areas early, and you're going to be talking to people, holding forums, holding town halls, and it might be 10 people or 12 people or 20 people, but that's what it's actually going to take. It's not going to happen if you're waiting on somebody white in D.C.
Right.
to wait till August or September to say, here's 200,000. No. What I'm saying is, don't wait.
I can tell you right now, it ain't the money didn't come from black people. But the RNC, they have got a ground game right now. They're using black folks, and I think that's why you're seeing this difference in these numbers. They political.
What ground game?
The RNC,
black people?
The RNC got people on the ground, Roland. Trust me.
Where?
Okay, well.
No, I'm asking where.
They have teams of people across this country, Roland. They're spending money to do it. I deal with someone who is the director of African American engagement, Camilla Prince, and I know for a fact that they got people on the ground right now. They've done training sessions, etc., to get people out, and they're doing it already. Hence the numbers that you're seeing with these polls in some of these publications, i.e., Politico. Came out yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
I think black people, we have to write our own ticket in terms of this next election.
Hold on. Go ahead.
We have to write our own ticket. So that does mean supporting black organizations that are doing that, putting our political capital, putting our political dollars into organizations that will cater to us, that will also help get black people into elected office, help get black people through the primaries, help get them to the general election, which will also increase our motivation and our enthusiasm for 2020. So we can't just make it all about beating Trump. We have to try to get black people up and down.
We got to make it about beating Trump.
And the issues. It has to be about the issues.
It's not mutually exclusive.
Actually, in fairness, there was a black participation Trump thing that Paris Denard did in Richmond a few weeks ago. He sent me a thing.
Right.
And I got to just check in to see how many people were there.
Okay.
I don't know yet.
Right.
I'm just saying. I don't know.
Yeah, down there.
Okay, Obama is here. Defeating Trump is tied to issues. See, all these people who think black folks just want to see Trump gone, there's a reason why.
Exactly.
It ain't like because, what the hell, you gotta go. No, there's a reason why. These white media outlets ain't gonna break down the reason why. Black folks remember shithole nations. Black folks remember good people on both sides when it comes to Charlottesville.
Right.
Black people know how he constantly attacks black women like Frederica Wilson, how he attacks the IQ of Congresswoman Maxine Waters, how he attacks black White House correspondents like April Ryan and Abby Phillips and others. Oh, it's real clear how he talks to black people. Now, he might have his favorite Negro, okay, who can pull out and go say, hey, here you go, but we know the real deal. And what I'm saying is there are clear issues where you can hit him on, he has no answer for.
Right.
None. No answer. The question is how you put it together. But I still say two takeaways before we go, and this is real simple. Young black voters, your ass got to vote.
They ain't going to.
Two, let me be real clear to young voters. Let me as real as I possibly can. Let me as raw as I can. I'm sick of this bullshit from y'all where you need somebody to excite you. Let me be real clear, okay? To young voters, cut the bullshit about I need somebody to excite me. Let me excite your ass in another way. If Donald Trump gets 4 more years, he likely will end up appointing half of all federal judges in America.
Right now.
And they are going to be there for the next 50 years. Now, let me just break that down. If your young ass is 20 years old right now, that means that a lot of Trump's judges will be there when you are 70. Does that get your ass excited? Let me excite you further. Donald Trump gave a $2 trillion tax cut to the rich. Guess what? Check about to be due. Here's what's going to happen. Democrats might take back the Senate. Guess what all of a sudden is going to happen? Austerity, cuts. What do we cut? You name it. Programs you like, gone. Them federal judges going to rule against climate change left and right. All y'all young folks say, I want somebody to excite me. Your student loan debt, that'll get your ass excited. So what do you want to do? You have Betsy DeVos over here who ran afoul of a federal judge's ruling when it came to companies who kept collecting on a debt when a judge told not to. Damn, they held them in contempt. Don't vote, her ass still gonna be there. Ben Carson, don't vote, his ass still housing secretary. He don't know what the hell he doing. All I'm saying is this here. If you are young and you're waiting for somebody to tickle your fancy and ignite your soul, your ass is crazy. You are nuts. You better understand there's power in that ballot. So you need to be organizing your classmates and your cousins. And if you gotta sit their ass down and play this video and educate them, fine. But I'm telling you, if young people stop making excuses, and I ain't saying just young black people, I'm saying these young white voters, where they are moving polling locations from populous campuses to far out places like the woman did in Wisconsin in 2012. That's all I'm saying. But if you're one of them people and you know somebody in your family who is saying, man, I ain't gonna vote, cuss their ass out, then educate them. That's all I'm saying. Maybe you don't want to cuss them out. I would, but that's all I'm saying. It has to happen. Because I'm telling you, Donald Trump is evil. If you think this man was mean and nasty and lying for the last 3 years, imagine if his ass win twice with no repercussions after that. That's America I don't want to see. All right, y'all. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support what we do. We're putting together this fantastic 2-hour show. What took place in Ghana. You're going to be blown away by it. Your dollars made that trip possible. We want to do more of that in 2020, not just going to African nations. We want to be able to go to all around this country, taking our show on the road, mobilizing our people, because not just the presidential election, but every city, every DA race, every judicial race, county commissioner, mayoral, state, gubernatorial, all of them matter when it comes to black interests. And so we want you to support what we do by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, where we are the only show out here, 5 days a week, live, streaming 7 days a week, okay? That is bringing the kind of information you can't get anywhere else. Because trust me, ain't nobody else give a damn about the year return but us. And trust me, it matters to us. And what happens in this election, we ain't talking voter suppression in October after voting rolls close. We've been talking about it for the last decade and won't stop. Well, thank our panel. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I'll see you. First of all, tomorrow we are off. We got some great content. We'll be live streaming for you. We'll be back with a live show on Friday. I'm Roland Martin. Holla!